Hello, and welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're grateful for each view and comment. Tell us, from which country or city are you watching today? We enjoy connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Midnight Hours. A thin beam of light penetrated the darkness as Vance Mercer quietly entered his modest two-bedroom apartment at 4:32 a.m. The smell of coffee still lingered in the air, a reminder of the cup he'd prepared for his wife, Denise, before she headed to her evening classes. His body ached from another 12-hour shift at Riverside Shipping, where he'd been working nights for the past 3 years, loading and unloading cargo to pay for Denise's education. Vance removed his steel-toed boots at the door, careful not to wake her. On the coffee table lay Denise's textbooks, Advanced Psychology and Ethics in Clinical Practice. A bitter irony, he would later reflect. At 32, Vance was not where he'd expected to be. The son of a contractor who died when Vance was just 17, he'd been forced to abandon his own college plans to support his mother and younger sister. When he met Denise Atkins at 27, she'd been working as a receptionist, dreaming of becoming a psychologist. They fell hard and fast, marrying within a year. "You're worth investing in," he told her the night she was accepted into the prestigious Westlake University's psychology program. "We'll make it work." Making it work meant Vance taking night shifts for the extra pay differential while Denise attended classes during the day. Their schedules rarely aligned, but the sacrifice seemed worthwhile. Just one more semester, and they could finally start the life they planned together. Inside their bedroom, Vance paused at the sight of Denise sleeping. Her dark hair spilled across the pillow, her breathing soft and rhythmic. A notification light blinked on her phone. He wouldn't have checked it if not for the strange behavior he'd noticed in recent weeks. The laughter that stopped when he entered a room, the whispered phone calls, the new clothes. Vance picked up her phone. No password, another sign of her overconfidence. The message preview showed clearly. "Professor Walsh, can't wait to celebrate your graduation and the start of our new life. Did you tell him yet?" His hands trembled as he opened the message thread, revealing months of exchanges between his wife and her professor. Intimate, detailed, devastating. In that moment, something inside Vance Mercer broke. And something else, something harder, colder, began to take its place. Chapter 2, Graduation Day. The auditorium of Westlake University buzzed with anticipation. Families clutched flowers and programs, pride evident on their faces. Vance sat alone, the empty seat beside him reserved for Denise's mother, who had canceled at the last minute with another of her emergencies. 3 rows ahead sat a man Vance, now recognized as Professor Alexander Walsh, 45, distinguished, with salt and pepper hair and the easy confidence of someone who'd never worked a 12-hour shift in his life. Walsh had his own family section, including an elegant older woman Vance assumed was his wife and 2 teenage children. "Denise Atkins Mercer," the dean announced, and Vance watched his wife cross the stage, radiant in her cap and gown. He applauded mechanically, wondering if anyone could see the coldness that had settled in his chest. Later, at the reception, Vance overheard a conversation between Denise and a classmate. "Filing the papers tomorrow." Vance has no idea. What about Professor Walsh's wife? Alexa's on board. They've had an arrangement for years. Stay married for the kids until they're in college. Their youngest starts at Cornell this fall. The casual way she discussed dismantling their life made Vance's blood turn to ice. That night, as they drove home, Denise was uncharacteristically cheerful. "I've been thinking," she said, "now that I'm done with school, maybe we should take some time apart. Figure out what we both want." Vance kept his eyes on the road. "Is that what Professor Walsh suggested?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "You know," her voice had lost its cheerfulness. "I know everything," Vance replied quietly. "The question is what happens now." "I'm sorry, Vance. I need someone on my level now. Someone who understands the academic world." The cruelty of her words settled between them like a physical presence. "I see," was all he said. Chapter 3, The Papers. The divorce papers arrived 3 days later. Vance was not surprised, but the alimony request stunned him. Denise was demanding half of their modest savings, plus monthly payments for 2 years to establish herself professionally. Vance sought out Nathaniel Price, an attorney recommended by his coworker Bailey, who had gone through a similar situation. Price's office was nothing impressive, a small space above a deli in downtown Riverton. The man himself was equally unassuming, heavy-set, with thinning hair and rumpled clothes. But his eyes were sharp, assessing. "So she wants alimony after you put her through school," Price summarized. "And she's already moved in with this professor." "Yes," Vance confirmed. "She claims she needs financial support because she hasn't established her practice yet." Price leaned back. "Tell me something, Mr. Mercer. How much do you know about your wife's relationship with this professor? When did it start?" "I'm not sure exactly when. At least 6 months ago. And she was his student during this time?" Vance nodded. "Interesting." Price tapped his pen against the desk. "Westlake has strict policies about professor-student relationships. Did you keep records of your financial contributions to her education? Tuition payments, book purchases, that sort of thing?" "Every receipt," Vance replied. "I'm very organized." "Good." Price smiled, a small, predatory expression. "And what about this professor? What do you know about him?" "Alexander Walsh. Psychology department. Married with 2 kids. Apparently, he and his wife have some arrangement." "Do they now?" Price made a note. "Mr. Mercer, I believe we have several options here. The most straightforward would be to counter her alimony request with evidence of her affair with a faculty member, which violates university ethics codes. Would that be enough?" "It's a start." Price studied Vance. "But I sense you might want more than just avoiding alimony payments." Vance met the attorney's gaze. "What I want," he said slowly, "is for Denise and Professor Walsh to understand exactly what they've taken from me." Price nodded. "I have a colleague, Leora Cassidy, former private investigator, now a paralegal in my office. She's exceptionally good at finding information people would rather keep hidden. With your permission, I'd like to bring her in on this." Later that week, Vance met with Leora Cassidy, a no-nonsense woman with a military bearing and precise manner of speaking. She listened to his story, asking occasional clarifying questions. 3 years of night shifts, she mused. That's a significant sacrifice. It was supposed to be an investment in our future, Vance replied bitterly. And instead, she invested your sacrifice in her future with someone else. Leora's expression hardened. Mr. Mercer, I should be clear, I only work within legal boundaries. But those boundaries are flexible with the right approach. Are you prepared for what we might find? And what you might need to do with that information? Vance thought about the nights he'd spent loading cargo while Denise was with Walsh, about the sleep he'd lost, the friendships he'd neglected, the dreams he'd deferred. I'm prepared for anything, he answered, as long as they understand what their actions cost. Leora smiled, a small, grim expression of approval. Then let's get started. Chapter 4. The Investigation. Vance continued his night shifts at Riverside Shipping, but now with a different purpose. Every dollar he earned was meticulously allocated, some to his legal fund, some to Leora Cassidy's investigation, and the rest to what he privately called his contingency plan. Leora's work was thorough and swift. Within 2 weeks, she had compiled a dossier on both Denise and Alexander Walsh that revealed far more than Vance had anticipated. Your wife and the professor weren't just having an affair, Leora explained during their meeting in Price's office. They were planning this for at least a year. I found emails where they specifically discussed using your financial support until she graduated. Vance's jaw tightened. Show me. The emails were coldly calculating. Denise had written to Walsh. V is working double shifts now to cover this semester's tuition. 1 more year of this arrangement, and I'll be free with the credentials I need for our practice. Walsh's response was equally callous. Perfect. The timing works well with Alexa taking the Munich position. By next fall, everything will align. There's more, Leora continued. They've already leased office space together for a joint private practice. Walsh and Mercer Psychological Services. They signed the papers 3 months ago, using your joint savings as the security deposit. Vance felt a new wave of rage wash over him. She used our money to start a business with him? I'm afraid so. But here's where it gets interesting. Leora slid across another document. Walsh isn't just any professor. He's being considered for department chair, and there's a book deal in the works, all contingent on his professional reputation remaining spotless. And a scandal involving a student would destroy that, Price interjected. Precisely, Leora confirmed. However, they've been careful. They only openly began their relationship after grades were submitted for Denise's final class with him. Technically not an ethics violation, though certainly in a gray area. So we don't have enough to ruin him professionally, Vance concluded. Not yet, Leora replied with a slight smile. But I did find something else interesting. The elegant Mrs. Alexa Walsh isn't just any academic spouse. She's Alexa Richter Walsh, daughter of Theodore Richter. The real estate developer? Price asked, eyebrows raised. The very same. The Richter family is old money, very concerned with appearances. They financially backed Walsh's career from the beginning. And while Mrs. Walsh may indeed be taking a position in Munich, I doubt the Richter family would be pleased to learn their son-in-law is leaving their daughter for a former student. Vance considered this information. So Walsh has more to lose than just his professional standing. Much more, Leora confirmed. And there's one additional detail you should know. Your wife has been recording your conversations. What? On her phone. She's been documenting any instance where you might sound controlling or unreasonable. I believe she's building a case for possible harassment, should you contest the divorce terms too strenuously. Vance's laugh was hollow. I've barely seen her in months. What could she possibly have recorded? Nothing substantial, Leora assured him. But it shows premeditation on her part. She was planning her exit strategy while you were still working to support her. As the meeting concluded, Vance asked, "What's our next step?" Price exchanged glances with Leora. "That depends on what you want, Mr. Mercer. We could use this information to negotiate a more favorable divorce settlement, or, Vance prompted, or we could pursue a more comprehensive response. Vance thought about the thousands of nights he'd spent awake while the rest of the world slept, about the future he'd sacrificed for someone who had been plotting against him. I want comprehensive, he said finally. I want them to lose everything they built using what they took from me. Chapter 5, The Plan. 2 days after his meeting with Price and Leora, Vance received a call from an unknown number. Mr. Mercer? This is Raymond Schaefer, Professor Walsh's teaching assistant. Vance tensed. How did you get this number? From Leora Cassidy. She suggested I might have information that could help you. They agreed to meet at a coffee shop far from campus. Raymond proved to be a nervous young man with perpetually disheveled hair and anxious eyes that darted around the cafe. I've been Walsh's TA for 2 years, Raymond explained, fidgeting with his cup. He's brilliant, but there's a pattern. Your wife isn't the first student. Tell me more, Vance said, his voice carefully neutral. There have been at least 3 others I know of, usually his top students. He mentors them intensely then, well, but your wife is the first one he's made plans with. The others were more temporary, and the university never investigated. Raymond's laugh was bitter. Walsh brings in research grants and prestige. The department looks the other way. Besides, he's careful. Nothing official until after grades are in. Why are you telling me this? Raymond hesitated. Last year, my girlfriend was in his advanced psychopathology seminar. He tried the same approach with her. When she refused his advances, her grades mysteriously suffered. She lost her scholarship, had to drop out. He looked up. His expression hardened. She took her own life 3 months ago. Vance's blood ran cold. I'm sorry. I've been gathering evidence, but without Tanya here to testify. Raymond trailed off. When I heard from Ms. Cassidy about your situation, I thought perhaps we could help each other. As Raymond shared his evidence, screenshots of inappropriate emails, records of grade changes, witness accounts from other students, Vance began to see the outlines of a plan. That evening, he met with Price and Leora to discuss his new information and propose his approach. It's risky, Price warned. If we make accusations we can't substantiate, we could face a defamation lawsuit. That's why we won't make the accusations directly, Vance explained. We'll create a situation where Walsh exposes himself. Raymond has agreed to help. The plan took shape over the following week. Vance would need to empty most of his savings and call in favors from friends at Riverside Shipping, but the potential payoff would be worth it. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings moved forward. Denise's attorney, a polished woman named Bridget Colton, who worked at one of the city's most prestigious firms, pushed aggressively for alimony and a portion of Vance's future earnings. My client sacrificed her prime earning years to support Mr. Mercer's career, Colton argued during a preliminary hearing, a claim so audacious that even the judge raised an eyebrow. Vance remained silent, letting Price handle the legal maneuvering. His focus was elsewhere, specifically on the detailed packages being delivered to specific individuals. One to Alexa Richter Walsh, one to Theodore Richter, one to the president of Westlake University, and one to a local journalist known for investigating academic scandals. Each package contained carefully curated information, enough to raise questions, but not enough to provide answers. Each recipient would need to dig deeper to understand the full picture, which was exactly what Vance was counting on. The final piece fell into place when Vance's coworker Bailey introduced him to his sister, Paige, a graduate student in computer science with a particular talent for digital forensics. So you need to recover deliberately deleted data from a specific device? Paige asked during their meeting. Yes, Vance confirmed. And it needs to be done in a way that's forensically sound and admissible in court. Paige named her price, steep, but within Vance's budget thanks to his years of accumulated overtime pay. I'll need access to the device for at least an hour, she explained. Can you arrange that? Vance smiled. As a matter of fact, I can. Chapter 6. The Betrayer Betrayed. The divorce proceedings had been underway for 6 weeks when Denise's attorney requested a meeting with Vance and Price. My client is willing to reconsider the alimony request, Colton began, her tone noticeably less aggressive than in previous interactions, in exchange for a lump sum payment and mutual non-disclosure agreements. Price raised an eyebrow. May I ask what prompted this sudden change in position? Colton's smile was tight. Let's just say my client wishes to resolve this matter expeditiously. After she left, Price turned to Vance. Something spooked them. Any idea what? Vance nodded. Alexa Walsh received my package 3 days ago. According to Raymond, she confronted her husband about the pattern of student relationships. Apparently, it was quite a scene at their home. And the other packages? Delivered as scheduled. The university president has requested a meeting with Walsh for next week. Theodore Richter has been making calls. Price looked impressed. You've been busy. I've had 3 years of nights to think about justice, Vance replied. The next development came unexpectedly. Vance was approached after a shift by a woman he didn't recognize. Elegant, poised, with the kind of confidence that comes from old money. Mr. Mercer? I'm Alexa Richter Walsh. I believe we should talk. They sat in her luxury SUV in the parking lot of Riverside Shipping. The information you sent me was illuminating, she began, though I've suspected Alexander's proclivities for some time. Then why stay married? Vance asked. Family obligations. Image. The children. She waved a hand dismissively. But that's not why I want to speak with you. I understand your wife and my husband have started a business venture together. Using my money, Vance added. Yes, well about that. Alexa's smile was cold. The Richter family has certain principles. One of them is that we don't tolerate being made fools of. I've spoken with my father. The Munich position I was to take has been reconsidered. I'll be staying in Riverton after all. And what does that mean for Walsh and Mercer Psychological Services? It means, Mr. Mercer, that my family's considerable influence in this city will ensure that particular venture never succeeds. No hospital affiliations, no insurance panel inclusions, no referrals from our extensive network of physicians and attorneys. Vance studied her. Why tell me this? Because I believe in fair play. You've had something taken from you, as have I. The difference is I have the resources to do something about it. She handed him a business card. My attorney. She's prepared to help you recover your financial investment in your wife's education. No charge. As she drove away, Vance realized his plan was working even better than anticipated. The very social and financial structures that had given Walsh and Denise their advantage were now turning against them. The final piece came together the night before the next court hearing. Raymond called Vance, his voice tense with excitement. It worked. Walsh tried to destroy evidence after hours. I caught him deleting emails from the department server. Campus security has the footage. The university's legal team is involved now. Vance thanked him and made one last call to Paige, who had successfully recovered the deliberately deleted recordings from Denise's phone during a chance encounter at a coffee shop, where Paige had offered to help with a software issue. The recovered files don't show what she thought they did, Paige explained. Instead of capturing you being controlling, they actually document her discussing the plan with Walsh. She must have forgotten to stop recording. Can you prepare those for tomorrow's hearing? Already done. Paige sounded pleased with herself. Oh, and I found something else. Text messages showing they used your joint account for the business lease. Clear financial misconduct during marriage. As Vance hung up, he felt a cold satisfaction. Tomorrow, everything would come together in the courtroom. Every sacrifice he'd made in darkness would finally be brought to light. Chapter 7. Day in Court. The county courthouse stood imposing against the morning sky as Vance arrived with Price. They were early, but not the first to arrive. Leora Cassidy was already there, speaking in hushed tones with Raymond Schaefer near the water fountain. Updates, Vance asked as they approached. Walsh has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation, Raymond reported. The university president received an anonymous tip about academic misconduct. And Denise, she's trying to distance herself, Leora said, telling colleagues she was manipulated, that she had no idea about the other students. Vance nodded, unsurprised. And Mrs. Walsh filed for divorce yesterday, Leora confirmed. Her family's attorneys are quite thorough. They've frozen joint assets pending financial review. Inside the courtroom, Vance noticed several unexpected attendees, a reporter from the local paper, a representative from the university's legal department, and, most surprisingly, Theodore Richter himself, the imposing patriarch of the Richter family, sitting stoically in the back row. When Denise arrived with her attorney, she looked noticeably stressed. The confident, almost smug expression she'd worn at previous hearings was gone, replaced by dark circles under her eyes and a nervous tension in her shoulders. She avoided Vance's gaze. Alexander Walsh was conspicuously absent. Judge Eleanor Harmon called the court to order promptly at 9 a.m. "I understand there have been some developments in the Mercer dissolution," she noted, peering over her glasses at the attorneys. Bridget Colton stood. "Your Honor, my client wishes to withdraw her request for alimony and is prepared to accept a simple division of assets accumulated during the marriage, minus education expenses." The judge raised an eyebrow. "That's a significant change from your previous position, counselor." "Yes, Your Honor. My client's circumstances have evolved." "I see." Judge Harmon turned to Price. "And the respondent's position?" Price rose slowly. "Your Honor, while we appreciate Ms. Mercer's willingness to withdraw the alimony request, we must respectfully decline the proposed settlement regarding division of assets. We have evidence that Ms. Mercer committed financial misconduct during the marriage, using joint funds for a business venture with a third party without Mr. Mercer's knowledge or consent." Colton interjected, "Your Honor, any such allegations are speculative and, if I may," Price continued smoothly, "we have documentation showing transfers from the Mercer's joint account to lease commercial property in the name of Walsh and Mercer Psychological Services, a partnership formed between the petitioner and Alexander Walsh 3 months before divorce papers were filed." Judge Harmon frowned. "I'd like to see this documentation, Mr. Price." As the evidence was presented, Denise grew visibly pale. Colton leaned over, whispering urgently in her ear. "Furthermore," Price continued, "we have reason to believe the petitioner's relationship with Mr. Walsh began while she was a student, potentially violating university ethics policies. This is relevant to the division of assets because it suggests Mr. Mercer's financial support of his wife's education was obtained under false pretenses." Objection. Colton was on her feet. "This is an inappropriate attempt to embarrass my client with irrelevant allegations." "Overruled," Judge Harmon replied. "The timing and nature of outside relationships can indeed be relevant to financial matters in dissolution proceedings." She turned to Price. However, Mr. Price, you'll need more than speculation about the timing of this relationship. Of course, Your Honor. Which brings me to our witness. Price gestured to the back of the courtroom. The respondent calls Raymond Schaefer. As Raymond took the stand and was sworn in, Denise's composure completely collapsed. She clutched at Colton's arm, whispering frantically. Raymond testified calmly about the pattern he had observed: Walsh's systematic targeting of promising female students, the preferential treatment, the offers of special mentorship, and finally, the relationships that invariably followed. And Ms. Mercer was part of this pattern. Price asked. Yes, Raymond confirmed. Professor Walsh began singling her out approximately 18 months ago, during her second semester in the program, while her husband was working night shifts to pay for her education. Objection leading. Colton interjected. Sustained. Judge Harmon ruled. Price rephrased. When did Ms. Mercer begin participating in special mentorship sessions with Professor Walsh? January of last year, Raymond answered. They often met in his office after hours. Campus security logs confirm this. As the testimony continued, Judge Harmon's expression grew increasingly severe. When Price introduced the recovered recordings from Denise's phone, documenting conversations where she and Walsh explicitly discussed using Vance's financial support while planning their future together, the courtroom fell completely silent. Denise's voice echoed clearly through the speakers. Vance has no idea. He's working double shifts this month. The extra money should cover next semester's tuition and leave enough for our lease deposit. Walsh's response was equally damning. Perfect timing. Keep him in the dark for 2 more semesters, then we can make our move. My lawyer says I can file for alimony based on sacrificed career opportunities. That should fund the practice until we're established. Denise's head was now in her hands. Colton was furiously writing notes, occasionally attempting to object, but finding little ground to stand on. The final blow came when Price called his last witness, a surprise to everyone, including Vance. The respondent calls Alexa Richter Walsh. The elegant woman rose from her seat and made her way to the witness stand. Theodore Richter leaned forward slightly, watching his daughter with evident pride. Alexa testified to finding evidence of her husband's affairs in their home office. Notes, gifts, correspondence carefully hidden in a locked drawer. She described confronting him about Denise specifically. He admitted the relationship had been ongoing for over a year, she stated calmly. He said they had been planning to establish a practice together once her divorce was finalized. When I asked about ethics violations, he said they had been careful to ensure no official relationship existed while she was a student. No official relationship, Price repeated. But in your opinion, was there an improper relationship during that time? Objection. Calls for speculation. Colton interjected. Sustained. Judge Harmon ruled. Undeterred, Price continued. Mrs. Richter Walsh, did your husband indicate when he and Ms. Mercer began discussing their plans for a joint practice? Yes. He said they had been planning it for approximately 15 months, since shortly after she became his research assistant. By the time Alexa stepped down, the atmosphere in the courtroom had transformed. Judge Harmon's expression was one of barely contained outrage. Theodore Richter nodded slightly at Vance, a gesture of acknowledgement between men who understood the value of patience and strategic thinking. Your Honor, Price said, given the evidence presented, we request that all funds Mr. Mercer contributed to Ms. Mercer's education be returned to him, along with punitive damages for the financial misconduct regarding the unauthorized use of joint funds for the business venture with Mr. Walsh. Judge Harmon looked at Colton. Counselor, do you wish to present any rebuttal evidence? Colton conferred briefly with Denise, whose shoulders were now shaking with silent sobs. No, Your Honor, Colton finally replied. My client requests a brief recess to consider her position. Judge Harmon checked her watch. The court will recess for 1 hour. I suggest you use that time wisely, Counselor. Chapter 8. The Collapse. The courthouse hallway buzzed with whispered conversations during the recess. Vance stood by a window, watching clouds gather outside, a storm approaching, mirroring the one that had just broken in the courtroom. Mr. Mercer, He turned to find Theodore Richter approaching, his imposing figure drawing glances from others in the hallway. Mr. Richter. Vance extended his hand, which the older man shook firmly. I've been observing you, Richter said without preamble. You're methodical, patient. You understand the value of gathering information before taking action. I've had practice, Vance replied. Loading cargo requires careful planning to prevent collapse. Richter's smile was thin. Indeed, I understand you worked those shifts to support your wife's education. I did. A significant sacrifice. Richter studied him. My daughter tells me you declined her offer of legal assistance. I appreciated the gesture, but this is my battle to finish. Richter nodded, seeming pleased by the response. Walsh will not be joining the faculty next semester, nor will he be publishing his book. The publisher received certain concerning information about his research practices. I see. The man has made enemies he wasn't aware of, Richter continued, as has your wife. Integrity matters in professional circles, Mr. Mercer. Before Vance could respond, Leora approached. Excuse me, gentlemen. Vance, there's a development you should know about. She led him to a quiet corner. Walsh just arrived. He's demanding to speak with Denise, but her attorney won't allow it. He's not taking it well. Through the glass doors of a conference room, Vance could see Walsh gesturing angrily, his face flushed. Denise sat hunched in her chair, still not looking at him. Colton stood between them, her stance protective. What's he saying? Vance asked. According to my contact in the room, he's blaming her for the exposure. Says she was careless with their communications. Now he's lost everything. His position, his book deal, his reputation. The door to the conference room suddenly burst open, and Walsh stormed out, nearly colliding with the bailiff. His eyes landed on Vance, recognition and rage flashing simultaneously. You, Walsh snarled, moving toward him. You orchestrated this. You had no right to interfere in matters you couldn't possibly understand. The bailiff stepped between them. Sir, I need you to calm down. Calm down. Walsh laughed bitterly. This man has systematically destroyed my career, my marriage, everything I've built. Actually, Vance replied evenly, you destroyed those things yourself. I just made sure everyone saw what you were doing. Walsh lunged forward, but the bailiff caught him. That's enough, sir. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the courthouse. As Walsh was escorted out, still shouting accusations, Vance noticed Theodore Richter watching the scene with cold satisfaction. Their eyes met briefly, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between them, justice taking its course. When court resumed, the change in atmosphere was palpable. Denise sat alone at her table. Colton had been called away by an urgent message from her firm. When Judge Harmon asked if she was returning, Denise simply shook her head. Your Honor, she said, her voice barely audible, I wish to withdraw all claims against Mr. Mercer. I'm prepared to sign whatever agreement his attorney proposes. Judge Harmon frowned. Ms. Mercer, are you currently represented by counsel? No, Your Honor. Ms. Colton has withdrawn from my case. I see. Given the serious nature of the evidence presented, I'm inclined to continue this hearing regardless. Mr. Price, do you have a proposed settlement? Price presented a document outlining terms that were heavily favorable to Vance. Full repayment of all educational expenses, return of misappropriated funds, and a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent Denise from using their marriage in any professional context. These terms seem punitive but not unreasonable given the circumstances, Judge Harmon noted. Ms. Mercer, do you understand and accept these terms? Yes, Your Honor. Denise's voice was hollow. Very well. The court will accept this agreement. However, Judge Harmon added, fixing Denise with a stern gaze, I feel compelled to note that your conduct in this matter has been deeply troubling. The court takes a very dim view of financial misconduct and misrepresentation in divorce proceedings. As Judge Harmon formalized the ruling, Vance watched Denise. The woman who had laughed at him, who had said she needed someone on her level, now seemed diminished, her confidence shattered. Outside the courthouse, rain had begun to fall. Vance stood under the overhang, watching droplets create ripples in puddles forming on the steps. Price approached, umbrella in hand. A decisive victory, the attorney noted. How does it feel? Vance considered the question. Like waking up, he finally answered. For 3 years, I've been in darkness. Now I can see clearly again. As if to emphasize his words, a crack of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by the deep rumble of thunder. In that flash of clarity, Vance understood that while one chapter had closed, another was just beginning. Chapter 9, New Horizons. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Vance stood in the doorway of a renovated warehouse space in the city's rapidly developing riverfront district. The sign above the entrance read, Mercer Logistics and Supply Chain Consultants. This looks promising, Leora Cassidy remarked, stepping up beside him. She had traded her paralegal role for a position as head of security and background investigations for Vance's new venture. Much better than our first office. Vance smiled. Their first office had been a corner table at a 24-hour diner where they'd sketched out the business plan on napkins. We've come a long way in a short time. Inside, a team of 6 employees, all former colleagues from Riverside Shipping, worked at modern workstations. The wall displayed framed contracts with major regional distributors who had hired Mercer Logistics to optimize their operations. Vance's phone buzzed with a text from Raymond Schaefer, now pursuing a PhD at a different university. Professor Walsh's book deal officially canceled. Publisher citing insurmountable concerns about research methodology. Thought you want to know. Another text followed immediately. Also, Dee's license application denied by State Board. Ethics concerns. Vance put his phone away without responding. He no longer needed updates on Denise and Walsh's downward spiral. The last he'd heard, they were both struggling to find employment in their field, their professional reputations in tatters. The psychological practice they'd planned had never materialized. The lease space now occupied by a trendy coffee shop. Mr. Mercer? His assistant, Haley, approached with a tablet. Your 2 p.m. is here. Theodore Richter. Vance nodded. Show him to my office, please. The relationship that had begun in that courthouse hallway had evolved into something unexpected. After witnessing Vance's methodical dismantling of Walsh and Denise's plans, Richter had approached him with a business proposition, consulting on supply chain optimization for Richter Development's extensive portfolio of commercial properties. That initial contract had provided the capital Vance needed to start his own firm. Now, 6 months later, Mercer Logistics was growing rapidly, with Richter as both client and informal mentor. Vance. Theodore Richter entered, impeccably dressed as always. At 72, he moved with the energy of a much younger man. The space is coming along nicely. Thank you for the recommendation, Vance replied, gesturing to the renovated warehouse. Your property manager was right. This location is perfect. They discussed business for 30 minutes. Contract renewals, expansion possibilities, a potential new client in the pharmaceutical distribution sector. As the meeting concluded, Richter shifted to a more personal topic. Alexa mentioned seeing your ex-wife recently, applying for a position at a small counseling center on the outskirts of town. Entry-level intake coordinator, I believe. Vance's expression remained neutral. I see. She was not successful in her application, Richter added. Apparently, word is spread quite thoroughly within professional circles. That's unfortunate for her, Vance replied without inflection. Richter studied him. You don't seem particularly satisfied by her downfall. My goal wasn't to see her suffer indefinitely, Vance explained. It was to ensure she understood the consequences of her actions. I believe that lesson has been thoroughly delivered. And Walsh, teaching introductory psychology at a community college 3 states away, according to Raymond. Using a different name professionally, though that hasn't entirely shielded him from his reputation. Richter nodded, seeming to approve of Vance's detachment. You know, most men in your position would have been consumed by revenge. They would have continued pursuing it long after making their point, ultimately destroying themselves in the process. I spent 3 years of nights watching cargo being loaded and unloaded, Vance replied. I learned that proper weight distribution is critical. Too much focus on one side, and everything collapses. Rising from his chair, he moved to the window, overlooking the river. My life was unbalanced before, All sacrifice, no reward. Denise and Walsh exploited that imbalance. But continuing to focus on their destruction would create a new imbalance. I prefer to direct my energy toward building something lasting. A wise approach, Richter commented. Though I must admit, I find your capacity for restraint remarkable. Many would not be satisfied with anything less than complete annihilation of those who betrayed them. Vance turned from the window. They've lost their reputations, their careers, their relationship, and their future plans. The destruction is complete enough. Pursuing them further would only diminish my own progress. As Richter prepared to leave, he paused at the door. One last thing. My daughter's foundation is hosting a benefit next month for educational scholarships. She specifically requested that I extend an invitation to you. Alexa wants me at her charity event? Indeed. She mentioned something about appreciating your perspective on the value of education. Richter's smile held genuine amusement. I believe she finds your story instructive. After Richter departed, Vance returned to the window, watching ships navigate the river, each carefully balanced, moving with purpose toward distant destinations. His phone rang, Bailey, calling from the warehouse floor. Boss, the West Side medical shipment just arrived. There's a discrepancy in the manifest. I'll be right down, Vance replied, already moving toward the door. The night shifts had ended, but the lessons learned during those long, dark hours remained. Patience, persistence, and the understanding that true justice required not just retribution, but rebuilding. Denise had once laughed that she needed someone on her level. What she hadn't realized was that Vance Mercer's level had always been higher than she could see. Grounded in integrity, strengthened by sacrifice, and ultimately defined by the capacity to move forward without being consumed by the past. As he stepped onto the warehouse floor, surrounded by the business he had built from the ashes of betrayal, Vance felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Not the cold satisfaction of revenge, but the quiet pride of creation. The price of betrayal had been paid in full, not just by those who had betrayed him, but by Vance himself, who had transformed that payment into something valuable and enduring. The ledger was balanced. The account was closed. And Vance Mercer finally was free. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.